Hey there, everybody. Welcome. This is the Lunar Lessons episode of the Rockstar Manifestors podcast. And this is my lunar lessons that I experience through each lunar cycle. And so this is the episode for the Capricorn New Moon season. So I'll cover the Capricorn New Moon and then the Leo full moon, which is like the top and bottom of the lunar cycle. And what these are for are a couple of different reasons. It's for me to hold myself accountable to working with the lunar cycle, doing the things that I talk and teach and coach about, and also to share that with you, to share my journey, my experiences, show you, the processes of learning and experiencing lessons, and also the manifestations and the intended and unintended outcomes, this whole process, because it's an ongoing thing and indefinitely as far as I see it. So it never it never ends until we are no longer here physically. So that's what these episodes are, and they are available to you only on the podcast platforms, so wherever you can listen to podcasts, and also on my YouTube podcast format. So not on Facebook Live or any others like my Manifesting Me episodes are, which you'll find here on the podcast as well. So if you're new, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. I'm Patty, and I am a manifestation coach and mentor and a speaker and an author. And these are all things that I have manifested. And so I am here to help with that, for those of you who are looking for help with that as well. So let's get going. Like I said, I'm going to talk about the Capricorn New Moon. That's this lunar cycle that I'm talking about. And so what I do, like my basic process, is to pull cards, tarot cards, and journal, and then incorporate what other things. It's not always the same thing, but I do follow I guess just a practice of pulling tarot cards, and I use spreads. I don't make up my own questions. I actually use spreads from a lunar planner created by the Sisters Enchanted, and it follows the lunar calendar. So the calendar starts with the new moon. It doesn't start with the January 1st or February 1st. It starts with the new moon. So it's set up a little differently, but that's one of the things I like about it. And if you're interested in checking it out or learning anything about it, I will put it in links around either in the description or show notes, wherever you're listening to this or watching it, because it's not something that I offer. It's not a product of mine. It's something that I use, but love sharing things that I love with you guys. So you will find that in the notes somewhere or descriptions, and any other things that I reference as well, I will always make available link-wise or let you know where to find them in the description and the show notes. So I don't go through all of them, just kind of like the major points of my lunar lessons. Otherwise, it would be a much longer episode going through each individual prompt or question. But I also want to let you know that if you are not a tarot person or oracle card person and still want this process of journaling, you can use the questions or the prompts as journal prompts. You do not need to pull cards, because that's an external thing, and really everything we need is within us. I happen to like that practice. And complete side tangent, I feel like it connects me with my Nana, because she used to pull cards. She used to do tarot, like in her living room for the ladies of the neighborhood or wherever. And so I feel like I have that connection with her because of that. But the prompts or any tarot prompt can be used as a journal prompt as well. So with the Capricorn New Moon, generally, this is like the general overall kind of energies that might be good, that are supported with the Capricorn New Moon, intention wise, is focusing on intentions around your career. business, achieving your ambitions, because that is very Capricorn like. And I had like a general, like my general view of Capricorn was like the CEO of the zodiac. It's the one that gets things done. It is taking its, just going up that mountain with that end goal in mind and keeping those blinders on, which can be good and bad. And I recently, through this lunar cycle, also heard and learned of an additional way of looking at Capricorn. It is the one guiding the dream, right? So if it's the CEO of the zodiac, it is, or of the company even, let's say, right? Putting it in that type of context, it is also the person or the one who has the vision of the company. The visionary of the company says, this is what I want the company or my business or my career to look like. This is what I want it to evolve into. This is the picture, the bigger picture that I am envisioning. So that was an added component that I learned, and it really helped expand my vision and how I see Capricorn. Yes, it's the CEO, but it's the CEO with the vision of where these steps are taking you, or where he or she want the steps to lead to. So that's a new addition for me, but I love it because it expands my view of how I see Capricorn. So focusing on intentions around your career, business, and achieving your ambitions is something that you can look for to what your intention might be for, it could have been for the Capricorn New Moon. So with that in mind, mine was the intention of disciplined. And I have come back to this intention several times, and not in the sense of like, because it's just the one I choose, so to speak. It's because discipline and I have had a rocky relationship throughout my life. I resisted discipline. It was something that was like, no, that's not fun. It's not good. And so this is a lesson that I have been learning and realizing that discipline is actually the thing that leads to the freedom and the flexibility and the things in life that I want. So I have been making friends, if you will, with discipline on an ongoing basis the last few years. I still have my struggles with it. So with the help of pulling the cards, the prompt for what led me to focus on this as an intention was, what should I focus on this lunar cycle? I pulled the card, which is the 10 of Swords, and the swords have to do with thoughts, communication, like the thoughts that we have and the beliefs that we have, the way we communicate with ourselves and with others. And so with it being a new moon intention and that focusing on myself, I set the intention of discipline with the focus, that card helping me with the focus being disciplining my thoughts to create emotions that inspire action towards my business goals and desire. So see how I took kind of like the overall energy, the focus for Capricorn, and what I got from the card of discipline, or discipline is a word I associate with Capricorn, like that feeling word that I associate with Capricorn. And then I got the 10 of Swords. And so that has to do with thoughts and communication and beliefs. So that's through my journaling and kind of my interpretation of that. So my intention is discipline and specifically focusing on my thoughts to inspire, myself to take the action that moves me forward, to help me develop those new beliefs and new thoughts, replace the thoughts that don't help me with ones that do. So that's the type of discipline that I was focusing on. And so that's how you can also take the overall theme or concept or associated words with a specific zodiac and apply it to a specific area of your life or to a specific direction. Because like discipline can be applied to so many things. I specifically was focusing on the disciplining my thoughts to help me versus hindering me or holding me back. And so that was the overall intention. And then what I jotted down, because I keep notes for myself throughout the lunar cycle, and I'm referring to them here. So that's where you'll hear me flip back and forth. And it's in that lunar planner that I reference. So if that is something you're interested in, it does have the tarot or journal prompts. And so I wrote down intention, disciplined, and since I work with intentions as feeling words, I asked myself, what does discipline feel like for me? Since that's what my intention was for the lunar cycle. So what does discipline look and feel like for me? And what I wrote is stable, but not rigid. And this goes back to this ongoing tug of war I have had with the concept of discipline in my life. I have resisted it and can see that I have not experienced the results that I desire because I have not implemented and I have not disciplined myself enough to do the things that move me in the direction of creating that freedom and flexibility that I want. So for me, discipline feels stable, but not rigid. So it's established, it's a foundation, but it's not so rigid that it doesn't allow for flexibility. And I'm not saying that this is all of a sudden, boom, I have it now embedded in my energy. Like I said, I've had an ongoing lesson learning relationship with discipline. So it is just building on my experience, and I'm just continuing to reframe and to establish and strengthen those principles as I go. So that was what I started the lunar cycle off with. And so there's a connection. This one was quite interesting. So that's what I focused my actions on and catching my thoughts. And I did catch, I made a note. So let's see, what day was it? The new moon was on the 9th, I believe. Take that back. The new moon was on the 11th of January. And on the 16th of January, after doing the card pull and setting my intentions, etc., I wrote down a note. It says, when I feel overwhelmed and that I don't know where to start, I scroll or distract myself with so-called busy work that I would think that is related to my business, but was not work or actions that moved me forward. So in that action taking phase, I realized that I am making myself look and feel busy by checking my numbers, by checking statistics, or creating some type of, like a spreadsheet or something along those lines. And that feels very disciplined, right? That feels very structured, but it's not actions that were really moving me forward. It was simply making me feel busy so that I could say, hey, I am being disciplined by creating these spreadsheets and checking my statistics and my numbers and all these things. And those are all necessary or helpful tasks, but they are not or were not, for me, the top priority, the needle movers, if you will. So I was busying myself with that. That's a realization I had when I'm looking at the actions that I'm taking. And so the thought, since I'm working on my thoughts this lunar cycle, or that was the focus. We've moved into another lunar cycle, the next one. So that's why I'm recapping the previous one with these lunar lessons. So I wrote down the thought to insert when I catch myself feeling overwhelmed and doing the busy work or allowing myself to get distracted by scrolling or something that feels good in the moment, but again, does not further the desired goal, the end result, the end goal. So the thought that I wrote down to insert was, I can or am capable, because capable is my word of the year this year. So I tie it in as much as I can. And so I can or am capable of breaking the tasks I have into steps and easing in order to ease the overwhelm. And so taking a big task or not knowing where to start and picking a place to start, breaking it down into steps, and maybe even assigning those steps to different days, not all on the same time, at the same time. And then I wrote down with an asterisk, it's like, this is shit I know, but have not implemented. And so how many of you guys can say that? We know the things that we need to do, or we know we've heard the lessons, but we're not really doing it. And that ties into, I think, my previous lunar lessons where it's like, just because I know these things, I thought, or I had this belief that I should be experiencing the results, but I am not any more special than anyone else. And simply because I know this, I also still have to go through the steps. I have to experience every step and stage along the way in order to really embody it and know and learn from it. Simply knowing it in my brain is not enough. And so that's where I wrote down, I am capable of breaking this down into steps to ease my overwhelm. And I started doing that in that looking ahead for the week or for the month and the tasks and projects that I was working on, and starting to find that way for myself, that breaking it down into several days, or grouping similar tasks together and batching them together, or doing them around the same time instead of jumping from one thing to another. That really takes much more time and makes it easier for me to give in or jump into doing something that distracts me because I'm just like feeling scattered anyway. So these are the things that I'm starting to work on through this lunar cycle. I'm not a master of them yet. That's not how it works, but it's something that now I am aware of and can work on improving and incorporating more consistently in my life. And so then that brings us to the Leo full moon. So we have always a new moon in a zodiac sign, and then a full moon in a different zodiac sign. They're not in the same sign. And oftentimes, if you look at the zodiac wheel, like the birth chart wheel, the new moon and the full moon are directly opposite of each other. And right now it's a little skewed, so it's not the exact opposite. It's one house or one sign off, if you will, because we had two Aries new moons last year in 2023 in a row. And so it won't kind of get back on track, if you will, until later this year in 2024. I did know, or I did hear when, I think it's around the summertime, but I'm not exactly sure on that right now. But for the Leo full moon, this is the full moon is the time where we can look at the lessons we have learned from the actions we've taken or not taken, the stories that have come up. And so the Leo full moon is a time what the energies or the focus with the Leo full moon was releasing something that blocks your confidence and self-esteem. And so I had a couple of interesting, not things, just I guess cards. Like I talked about the tarot, I had two cards that I pulled for the new moon, the Capricorn new moon, also show up in the full moon spread. So that was a way of kind of connecting the story, moving the story and my experience along. So that's what I'm going to share with you from the full moon of my experience. So I wrote this down so I in a way that I hope makes sense. So for the let's see, releasing something that blocks my confidence and self-esteem. And so for both the new moon and the full moon, I had the 9 of Swords come up. And so for the new moon spread, it was the last card. It's a 4-card spread or prompts that they give you in the book. And so the last card of the spread was the 9 of Swords for me. And that prompt was relinquishing. Where could control stand in the way of my intention? What do I need to let go of? So my intention being discipline. And so what was standing in the way, and what I jotted down for myself was needing to know, or needing or wanting to know all the things, or wanting to know everything before I get started. And so letting go of that, the way to do that is to actually take action, not sitting there and thinking it over and over and over and trying to go through all the steps in my brain, actually trying something, doing something. And so in the full moon spread for the Leo full moon, it was the first card of the spread. So it ended the spread at the new moon and it started the spread at the full moon. And that question was, Where can I light a fire under myself to get closer to my goal? And so with that, I wrote, light a fire in the way I think and speak to myself to inspire, to continue and inspire that action on an ongoing basis. So with that kind of thread going on, it's like, how did I write this? Let go of needing and wanting to know everything before getting started or doing more. Let go by starting to take action, and then light a fire under my ass, basically, in the way that I think and speak to myself to inspire action instead of inaction, instead of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, let me figure out. I can figure it out. I am capable of figuring it out. And so the second card that came up in both spreads was the Three of Cups. And cups is associated with our emotions, if you're not familiar with tarot. And so in the new moon spread, it was for the topic of control. Where do I need more control in order to realize my intention? And what I wrote then was, I need more control of how I support and nurture myself, because that nurturing and association with water has to do with our emotions and nurturing. So I personally realized that I need more control of how I support and nurture myself with my thoughts and self-talk, right? And then for the full moon spread, it came up for the question of being seen. Where in my life do I need to step forward and be seen? And so in that aspect, what I jotted down as the insight for myself is that I need to step forward to be seen doing the things that I love and that feel good for me, and sharing my journey and experiences with others and to others to show that it is possible, that changing circumstances is possible, and that it doesn't have to, we don't have to wait. We shouldn't. I don't like the word should, but it is not necessary for us to wait. It is not helpful or beneficial for us to feel like we need to wait until we reach a certain benchmark to do the things that we love, to do the things that we enjoy. That actually harms and hinders our progress and ourselves. So when I wrote down, be seen doing the things that I love. And by being seen, it's not just like, oh, look at where I'm going and look at what I'm doing. That's part of it. But also being seen and being visible, letting people know and just experiencing and sharing the things that I love. And so that includes music. And I have been incorporating music in what I talk and share with you guys about for a while. And it also led me to realize this lunar cycle, actually to solidify, because at the beginning of the year, I wrote down a list of things I want to do more of. So I made this list of what I want to carry or do more of in 2024 and leave behind, or, that type of list at the beginning of the year. And moving into 2024 and throughout and beyond, I put that I wanted to get back to attending more live music events, listening to music, not simply on my earbuds, but going for the experience of it. I loved going to concerts and shows, and, small or big, it really didn't matter. It's that being in that energy of the actual music in a live setting, as well as what I do, like listening to my playlists and Spotify lists and all that. So going to more music, or incorporating more music and fun with friends on just like silly fun, not big, audacious plans like vacations and all that, which I do also want, but more silly, random, day-to-day fun with friends. And this lunar cycle, I really stepped into and attracted those opportunities of doing more of that. And I also shared them with you guys through stories and realizing, like, one of the stories I did recently was appreciating how far I have come, where I was living an existence at the very beginning of my business where I felt like I could only live my life on the weekends. And that had to do with the the job, the muggle job, the day job, if you will, the 9 to 5, which was really more than 9 to 5 that I had. And because I was not in control of my schedule, other people, through work were creating my schedule for me. I was doing a lot of field work, and I just felt like I could not commit to or even plan on doing things during the week. And so I was living my life on the weekends. I distinctly remember that being a phrase I thought and said very frequently. And so I made a story specifically appreciating the fact that now I have the freedom and flexibility to schedule my own day, to attend things during the week, to do fun stuff randomly, because I have started creating that type of lifestyle for myself. I still want to increase it and amplify it, but appreciating that I am no longer beholden to someone else making my time, to scheduling my time. I am in complete control of that. And that also points out that when I don't schedule it well, I experience the consequences of that, right? So it's both sides of that coin. And so doing and showing more of that, I think, is helpful for myself to keep that as memory and documentation of my experience and show you guys my journey as well. And so, yes. And then the last part of control is like, for the full moon, what can I do to control my fire and not let it consume me? And I got the Fool, which is the very first card in tarot. And so I wrote, I need to start showing up as myself more and more and more. I have started doing that, but just really leaning into existing in this space and time as the full-time entrepreneur, as the person who speaks and in the way that I wish I did in the past. And I have started making progress towards that, but continuing to just lean into that as much as I can on a day-to-day basis in more and more areas of my life, just showing up excited for the journey, excited to get started on this new iteration, excited, for what's to come in this journey. And that really helped propel me. It's like, let me just show more of this, because it also helps me feel into it more, and documenting it gives me more ideas of what to share, what I want to do more of. And so just last night, before recording this episode, I had a couple of girlfriends and I were going to go to a city, like a little community. It was for the Lunar New Year. So they were having like a little street festival with food and rides, like that type of thing. And we just wanted to kind of check out the different vendors and things like that. We hadn't really made specific plans as to where we wanted to eat or anything along those lines. So once we got there, we checked out the vendors and looked at all the fun stuff and took some really fun pictures, because it's the year of the dragon. So took some pictures with like dragons, decorations and things along those lines. And when it came time to decide what to eat, we wanted to actually find a place where we could sit down, not just like walk around holding, like fair food. So we went very nearby, still in the area, to this food court area. That's a permanent food court. And they have different types of food that you can choose from, which is cool. So we could all get whatever we wanted and still sit down and eat and enjoy. And guess what? They had a band playing there last night. So not only did we have the fun, of hanging out, but we also got to see some live music and had a great conversation with one of the kids that was in the band. I say kids, they're like college age. So to me, they feel like kids. I think one of them said a couple of them have graduated, but they met in college and formed this band. And so I refer to them as kids. And so we had a great conversation with one of them about the origin story of the band's name. And it's a rare name. Painite. It's a mineral or a mineral or a crystal. Painite, Cabernet, and I will put the correct spelling in the show notes if you want to check them out. Because painite is the color of wine, like a reddish wine. So they named it Painite Cabernet. And so we had this great conversation and got to listen to a couple of their sets, some really good music. The singer, she has an amazing range and an amazing voice. So see, I didn't even specifically make a plan to go see music, but because I'm living the best I can and intentionally doing those things that I enjoy, I am attracting more opportunities to do that. So lunar lessons are not always like the bad things, like learning the tough lessons. It's like, yes, this lesson just goes to show me that I can easily attract things like that, spontaneously without knowing ahead of time, by simply doing more of what I love and doing more of just silly, on the moment, fun things, going out with my girlfriends. And I did last week, I also did a lunchtime networking get together. And then later in the week, I did a coffee date with a girlfriend of mine. We call it our coffee adventures co-working day. So we get together, we find a cool coffee shop and do some work, usually get lunch. And depending on the area that we're in, either hang out, stay there, or go to somewhere else. So we had a full day of really cute, 2 different coffee shops, a really fun place for lunch, and got some work done along the way as well. And so doing more of those things is what I now see is attracting more opportunities to do the same. So that's what I have for you guys for this episode of the Lunar Lessons. I want to make sure that there wasn't any specific. I did write down a note for myself that the like doing the things that I love, that type of information from the full moon spread, it felt like confirmation to continue sharing these lunar lessons, and for both my benefit as well as to help others, like I said at the beginning of the episode. And so I like to point out some unintentional manifestations, and that was the bonus, like I just mentioned, the seeing music, unintentional manifestations, like a bonus manifested event this lunar cycle. It was actually technically after this lunar cycle because we're into the next one, but the ripple effect keeps going. And an intentional manifestation was moving myself to take action, moving myself with my thoughts to make progress. And I am learning or really stepping into planning my content, planning the activities and the things that I want further out, which was also something that was very hard for me. And it still doesn't feel completely natural or easy. And at the same time, it's getting better the more I do it and figure out, okay, how can I make this easier? And with that, setting that intention for discipline and helping myself with my thoughts, I attracted a resource of learning, with a coach, and not even her full program, just learning a new way of doing it that really feels much lighter, and it doesn't have me spinning my wheels. And so I'm still implementing that process. And so I will continue to do that. But all of these things, by documenting them and doing this process of working with the lunar cycle, is showing me that I am making progress. And then I can go back and look at previous, a year ago or a few years ago, and how far I've come. And the lessons, both desired and undesired, or intentional and unintentional, show me the progress I am making, and that I am moving forward, and I am learning and becoming and just stepping into that more and more. So those are that. Like I said, I will include the resources for you for the book, the Lunar Planner book. If you are interested in learning tarot, that is not something I teach in my business, but I do incorporate it with like tarot coaching. But if you're interested in learning tarot, I will have a link to where I learned it from, which is also the same place that creates the same people that created this lunar planner, the Sisters Enchanted. I am a mastermind coach in their community, which is why I am very familiar with their products and offerings. So they have a very simple, they break it down to a simple way of learning tarot, and it's a $27 class DIY. So I will put that link in there as well if you're interested in learning. And then if you just want more of this learning to work with the lunar cycle, learning about the zodiac that the new moon and full moons are in my Moon Manifesting Rockstars Facebook group. It is a free group. I have monthly new moon and full moon calls. And that's not this type of conversation, like sharing my lessons with you guys. That is actually explaining what zodiac the new moon is in, and intentions that might work well with that energy, how to take, types of actions and different associations that go along with each new moon and full moon. And it's a time that you guys can ask questions either on the live, submit them beforehand, or even submit them afterwards, and I will come back around and answer them or address them. So if you're interested in learning more of that, join us in the Moon Manifesting Rockstars Facebook group to get into the practice of working with the lunar cycle. And like I said, it's a free group, and there's also we're getting back to monthly free events going on in there. And the free event can be anything from a challenge to a class to a workshop, and that happens all within the group. And you have access to everything. As soon as you are in the group, you can participate in everything that goes on in there. So again, look around this video or in the show notes of the podcast platforms for the links and links to get any of the resources or to any of the places that I mentioned today. So thank you guys, and I will see you soon. Take care.